All right, hello everyone. To start off with, I'm sure that a lot of you will be aware that editing in the web generally has been available more or less since ArcGIS Online came out. But one of the things that was not, well, there were a lot of things that were not available. And now there's been a lot of development. And today we'll take a look at a few options and starting with the map viewer. The map viewer will probably be the most familiar to everyone, and it's the most accessible. It requires the least setup. You've got mostly everything there, but it already has a lot of options, for example, like snapping and smart forms. And then, if you find that map viewer doesn't answer all of your needs, you can also move on to Experience Builder, which might require a little bit of setup, but it gives you more options. You can go into 3D editing, and a lot of other widgets that allow you to be clever in the way that you manage your data. And then if that's still not enough, you've got Suite, which is a very powerful tool in our arsenal, which made me actually very excited. I really enjoy using it. And it's got a lot of possibilities. It's got a lot of functionality that never used to be available, but now we've got it. And helping us through today will be a scenario, which I have to preface. It is hypothetical and it is simplified. But yeah, so the idea is that if there was a desire to create a new campsite in the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park, how would we do it using the tools that we have? Well, first of all, of course, we need to find the location for it, which is somewhere near where people actually want to go. And then we need to check the suitability of that site regarding access, land cover, angles of the land. And then we need to create a plan. So I'll pass over to Ewan, and he'll start taking us through it.
Thank you for that introduction, Nikita. So all of today's content has been created in the web, and we're going to start by creating a layer completely from scratch in ArcGIS Online. And this will be used as our campsite area of interest polygon feature. So we're going to define a feature layer, and we're going to be starting completely from scratch. I'm going to give our layer a name. And we're going to set our layer type, polygon. Now here we have two further options. Should you wish to use your hosted feature layer within field maps, for example, you can toggle on the metadata option here, and you can also enable Z values. And we're going to select this because we're going to be working in 3D later on. We have our item summary, and we can click Save. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to a hosted feature layer that I created earlier. And you will see our data table is currently empty. If we check out the fields, you can see we have some automatically generated fields by the system for object ID, shape area, shape length, and attachments. And ahead of time, I've came in and added some more fields for us. Our site will need a name, a site type, whether it's for tents, motorhomes, or both, and a breakdown of that site by percentage for motorhomes and percentage for tents. We also have an edit date field. I'm going to add one further field so our editors can add some comments. To improve data quality, prevent editors entering incorrect values, and avoid typos, we can define a list of values or domains for fields in our hosted feature layer. These lists are particularly useful to field editors as they do not need to type out lines of text or out in the lovely Scottish weather. So within our site type field, I have added two values already for tent and motorhome, and I'm going to add a third combined option here. Now the label is what the editor and the user will see, and the code is what is stored within ArcGIS Online. So now we're ready to go, and we can move in to the web map viewer. So here we have a view of Loch Lomond. We have our empty hosted feature layer, and below this we have two pieces of content that I've added from the ArcGIS Living Atlas. These are courtesy of Nature Scot, and therefore special protection areas, which are highlighted in purple, and sites of special scientific interest. which are in red. Now, it's very straightforward to add Living Atlas content, and you'll see there's over 6,000 items available for us to choose from. If I filter this to Scotland, we have over 40 items from various organisations. And as we look down, here's Nature Scots content, some of which I have added already. Before we create our first polygon, I'd like to talk to you a bit about smart forms. Some of you may have already used smart forms in the Field Maps web application. They are very useful for tailoring the editing experience by ordering fields, showing and hiding fields, applying conditional logic, as well as calculated expressions. All of this results in a quick, more accurate and controlled editing workflow, which ultimately improves data management down the line. The form is saved as part of the web map, so anyone can utilize this functionality when it is shared with them. So here we have our form. I've added in some group elements to hold related fields. We have our site name, which is a text entry field. We then have our site type, which is making use of our list of values. I've set this to radio buttons, so with one click, the editor can select an option here. We then have our edit date. In our next group, we have our percentage split for the sites, and an additional information group, which I'm going to drag our new comments field into. Now, calculated expressions streamline all kinds of data collection, from storing usernames, emails, or data as an attribute. These expressions are created using Arcade. But don't worry, as you will see, some of these functions are very straightforward to use. And in fact, I find the ratio of time between creation and then using is much improved. So I'm going to go in and have a look at this function. And you can see, simple as that. And this is auto-populating our date. If we look at the functions list, we can search for now, and we can get information about the function we are utilizing within the form. Returns the current date and time in the local time of the client. I would encourage you to come in here and explore the further options for functions within the smart form. With conditional logic, you can show or hide form elements from editors based on values added to the previous fields. We're going to use this for a percentage split group. With just a single line of code, we can hide and show our site details group based on the values in the site type field. Here we have our expression. We've selected the site type field. We have our operator, and we have our list of values that we've defined already. On the opposite side of the screen, we have our Arcade syntax. And again, I would encourage you to launch the Arcade editor from here and explore the further options and capabilities. So we're ready to go, and we can start to look to create our first area of interest. So I'm going to navigate to the village of Balmaha, and I've spotted this nice looking headland. It has views across the loch, access roads on either side, and importantly, it's away from our constraints layer. In this instance, this is a site of special scientific interest. So I'm going to begin editing now. I'm going to enable snapping. This will ensure we do not encroach within our SSSI area and also avoid having slivers within our data. The orange lines you see as I create the point are our geometry guides, which can become useful in snapping to features and creating right angles and perpendicular lines. You'll see our smart form has now appeared, and we can begin to complete our attributes. Now, when I select tent and motorhome as our site type, our site details group then appears. You'll notice that our edit date has been auto-populated by the function we added earlier. I'm going to leave a comment here to please review in 3D. So far, we've created a layer from scratch. We've added some fields, define a list of domains. We've used the map viewer to define a smart form and created our first feature. I'd now like to show you a bit about Experience Builder, starting off behind the scenes. Experience Builder takes advantage of modern web development technologies, such as the ArcGIS API for JavaScript 4, and allows us to transform our data into compelling GIS-centric web applications without writing a single line of code. One of the key features of Experience Builder is the ability to interact with 2D and 3D content, all within the same application. This functionality will assist us with identifying the potential campsite locations, but also avoiding us having to go out on site to assess the terrain. It's worth noting this application is editing focused and is a streamlined version of the wide variety of capabilities within Experience Builder. So within our template here, we have our 2D web map that we've just been looking at with our hosted feature layer and our newly created polygon. On the other side, we have a 3D scene, which is also pointed at our same hosted feature layer. Along the bottom, we have an edit widget, which is pointed at the 2D map, and an edit widget, which is pointed at the 3D scene. We also have the elevation profile widget, which will help us with assessing the terrain. To add these map elements, you simply drag and drop into the canvas. To dock the widgets, I've used a widget controller, and this keeps them nice and tidy across the application. The navigation is linked between the 2D and the 3D scene, and this is done through something called a map action. You add a trigger based on the extent changes and point at the opposite map. So you'll see our 3D scene is pointed at our 2D map, and our 2D map is pointed at our 3D scene. Now, another great piece of functionality in Experience Builder is the ability to tailor your applications for a variety of screen sizes. So here we're in desktop or large screen view, and I can select how the application will look within a tablet or a medium-sized screen. I've selected custom here and moved the 2D map above the 3D scene. You have the ability to preview your content before publishing and quickly return should you wish to make any changes. Now, a top tip here, if you want to view your applications in the different screen sizes, you could reduce your browser size and then watch for the change, and it's flipped to how it would look within our tablet or medium-sized screen device. You've now seen behind the scenes in Experience Builder. It's now time to start using our application. So here you are. You can see our navigation is linked as I zoom and pan around. And then the 3D scene, we can start to assess our initially created area. Very interactive and easy to navigate around. And we can quickly see that our initial area of interest is potentially a bit sloped, and it's also heavily forested. To quantify this, we can make use of the elevation profile widget. 2 clicks across the site, and we have our elevation profile. As I move my cursor along the chart, note the point moving within the 3D scene. You have the option to view profile statistics of your elevation profile. And as you can see, we have a slope of 21 degrees. I don't know about you, but I don't fancy pitching my tent in this particular location. So we can use our 3D widget, an editor widget, to select our area of interest and remove it. You'll note it's also been moved from our 2D web map. So now our hosted feature layer has no contents again, and we can begin to navigate around our scene and look for an alternate location. Now, I've spotted this nice grassy field. Either side of the road looks appropriate. And we can double check this using our elevation profile tool. Seems to be a much more gradual slope. Checking the statistics. Yeah, only 6 degrees, much more appropriate for my tent. So what I'll now do is look to add another area of interest here. Again, we can enable snapping, ensuring we don't encroach on our SSI area. Again, we get our nice orange geometry guides, which will lead us vertex to vertex along our constraint. We can then input our attributes. And select our site type. Now, the eagle eye among you may have noticed that our smart form has not pulled through and is not yet available within the 3D scene. However, within the 2D map, we can utilize the smart form that we configured earlier. We can select the feature and come in and edit like so. I can change the site type, and our site details group then appears. Our date has also been automatically populated. And I can leave a comment here for Nikita to please review in Suite. And with that, I'll pass you over to Nikita, who will continue our camping journey.
All right, thank you very much, Ewan. So now I get to take you into the realm of Suite. Some of you may not have heard of this, but it is a very convenient, very useful tool. And to take you through just the layout of the thing, first of all, at the top, we've got our tools for interacting with the data, so to speak. So we've got the pans, we can select bits, we can create features. We also have an undo and redo, and we can copy features and we can paste them in. On the left, we've got tools that we have set up, and on the right, we'll have different things appear depending on what I've selected. And we've got snapping here very much in the same way. We can measure things, we can toggle the rulers, and look out for what appears here when I start editing the data. So we've got our area of interest, and as you can see, because we're using ArcGIS Online, what you just did right now is coming up on my screen as well. And well, a lot of the times, the workflow is such that you've identified an area of interest, and then you have a management call that people will talk about what would they like to do there. And the outcome of that call may be a beautifully created CAD drawing. However, there are times when that is not the case. Sometimes what we do get is we get a little screenshot doodle like that. And I can't blame anyone but myself for it this time around, but yeah, so here in Suite, we can bring in a screenshot like this, and we can start georeferencing it. So as you can see, it's a slightly different size and shape, but I can move it around, make it a little bit bigger, see how well that fits. Not very well, but there we go. So this will do for now. And as you can see, you've got options for fixed, where I am stretching in a fixed manner. So when I'm stretching one corner, the other corners stretch as well. You can skew it, you can freehand do it so that it's very similar to what you would be used to in a desktop application. And you can control how transparent it is. But let's say this is it. And you can see that you get a notification saying that edits are being applied. And this is what we have. And you can see this plan here. And the first thing that you see on this plan is that there is a farm building here. And I'll switch to aerial base map in a minute, you'll see it. But the thinking here is that there's a farm and there's an access tract through that field. It's unlikely that the farmer will be willing to sell it. So we're focusing on the left side of the road, and that will be where we build our plan. So what are the constraints that we need to take into consideration? Let's switch to the imagery base map, and you can see that we've got a road here, and let's make sure that we don't do anything on the road, and we've got tools here to do stuff. So first of all, we can cut and trim polygons, but right now, what I want to do is I want to create a feature, and I want to switch on my snapping. And you can see that immediately my mouse is snapping to the features that are in existence. And you can see the geometry guides coming up as well. So I can tell when I'm drawing a straight line, or eventually, once I go all the way around, you can see the square that's blinking on and off. That's telling me that I've got a right angle. Now, if I were doing this in my day job, I would be way more careful. But let's call this the shape of the road. And what we now know is that this northeastern part of the site is not something that we're hugely interested in. So what we want to do is select the campsite, and we've got a split function. And when I'm splitting, you can see that I'm still snapping to all of the features, but now I've got a lot of features to snap to. So instead of clicking and pointing, what we have is a follow. This is the same as tracing, so it's just the terminology has changed a little bit, but in reality, all I'm doing is creating vertices, and look at this, it's following me across. And I'm just highlighting the areas that we'll be cutting, and that's it. So I can now select this part and delete. It's that easy. Now, if I wanted to do other things, I can reshape this campsite. I can do it vertex by dragging all the vertices. I can do things like add areas, I can subtract areas from it. So there are a lot of options. Not going to be explored today, but if you want, I will give you a demo later on. So let's do something else with this. So let's take a look, first of all, at what we have in our plan. I like the topographic map because it's a little bit less cluttered, but within our plan, we have an image of our campsite. And within that, we have a road that has been sketched in. We have suggested locations for tents. We've got a location for some hard standing, so office buildings, admin stuff, things like that. And we can do things with this. Let's take a look, for example, at a proposed road. So this is the proposed road that's going to go through here. And the proposed road was drawn in freehand. And yeah, we can do the freehand here. All I need to do, point, click, hold, and move my hand. And move my hand again. There we go. Just like that. And here we are. So we've finished drawing our little road. Now, one of the things that you will notice is that it's taking a surprising amount of time to update, but that is because this is not just a simple road. Once it finishes updating, it doesn't do the thing that it was doing every time I had a run through with this. Let me just check. There we go. So here we are. This is, as you can see, a buffer across this road, because we all know that roads aren't, they're not a single line. So we can check that this road is, in fact, 4 meters wide. And this is a 4 meter wide buffer that was created automatically, because I told it to. And within this, what we can also do is we can create some tent spaces. So instead of choosing the proposed road, I can take a tent space. And once again, it's as simple as point and click. And as you can see, I've got triangles appearing everywhere where it has been suggested to me that a tent could be set up. And once I've done this, let's just do this quickly. What we can then do is we can take a closer look, and we can see that there's a buffer there as well. Again, created automatically, because tents, again, they need space. This is a 10-meter buffer because we need people to be able to tab out their tents and do all the guy lines and actually have space to enjoy themselves, have a barbecue, play. And then we go to do a little quick setup of our hard standing area. And when I'm drawing my hard standing area, as you can see, I've got the geometry guides to help me around, and like that. Look at this. So this is as simple as that to draw, for example, a rectangle. You don't even need a rectangle tool. So this is what you can do to quickly do a sketch of a campsite. And now this will be sent away, and then it will be corrected again, and you'll have to go through the process over and over again. However, it is actually rather easy to do all the setup for this. So this is the back end of things. This is how you set up your Suite application. And you've got your panels here, you've got your data view here, so this is where you define that you're using a particular map. And you can add the panels here as you wish, so you can do custom stencils, find, and I've also added base maps already into this. I've also added plans already into this. So it's literally drag and drop. You can just select whatever you want to set up. And you can then set up various different feedbacks on what you want to appear, what you don't want to appear. But the more powerful bit is in the data rules. So the data rules are a very interesting feature because it allows you to do a lot of things. It allows you to validate your data in terms of how it's collected. And I'm using the word collected here because this is something you can take offline. This is something you can do on a tablet in the field. And yeah, if somebody's collecting data, you can do the data validation and data rules. You also have triggers, and you also have topology. So topology are the rules that about how layers interact with each other. It's what they can and cannot do in the shape that you draw them. So here, for example, we have the sites of special scientific interest, and we can say that the smallest part allowed, well, that's 0.01 square meter, but we can set it so that if you know that a particular object cannot be smaller than a certain area, that's there for you. We can define that there can be no holes inside a polygon. We can say that a polygon can be a single feature, or it can be a multi-part feature. And you can talk about whether they can and cannot overlap. But you can also define this in the multi-layer rules as well. So you can add rules for overlaps, what can and cannot overlap each other. You can do rules for what can and cannot intersect, line touching. If an area has to be covered, like a phase 1 habitat survey that you might be doing, a site would need to be covered in some form of habitat, well, that you can set that. And it's quite easy to set up. All you have to do is play around. And within the data triggers and validation rules, so we've seen that I can create buffers automatically. And it's done in a very nice way. So first of all, we can define who can and cannot edit, or whether things can and cannot be edited already in here. So even if a layer is editable in principle, it doesn't have to be here. But within our 10 spaces, we've got triggers. And what do we do with triggers? How do we create these triggers? So the thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to add a buffer. And when we're adding a buffer, what are we doing actually? Well, we're inserting a row, and we're adding records. And where are we adding records to? Well, we're adding to the 10-pitch areas. And this is a part where a lot of people start getting uncomfortable because we're now entering the realm of scripting. But I promise you, it's not as bad as you think. So first, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what do we want to do? We want to add a feature. Within our examples, you can see that they're different to what Ewan was showing you because they're always relevant. And we want to add a new feature. Just click on that, and we have an explanation of what that does, and we have an example code. So as you can see, this final line here is telling us to create a feature, and it's telling us that if we had some attributes, we can define our attributes here. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really that hugely fussed about doing attributes at the moment, but at the first part, we're creating a point because it's an example, but we know that we're not creating a point, we're creating a buffer. And within our functions, we can just go down to the buffer and do our buffer. And here we come to the only bit of coding that you will actually need to do, so pay attention. Yeah. We're doing a 10-meter buffer, so that's it. This is all you need to do. And you can click the test button, and you can see that there you go. The result is geometry, and, well, it says null because we don't have any attributes to do, but it's returning a feature for us. And this is as simple as that. So even though you're entering the realm of editing some code, it's not that terrifying. And we've got examples, and there's enough documentation online if you wanted to find out more. And speaking of finding out more, what else can we do? We can do quite exciting things. This will require a bit more of a setup, and this will require some more fiddling. However, this is an example of a farmsteading, and we have some fields here. And for example, we also have some charts here as well. These charts tell us that the potential income from all of these fields could be £7,500, but we're extracting just £4,000 from it. And we can look at our diversity, because you could plant potatoes in all of the fields, but that leads to so many problems. And yeah, diversity is important. And you can see the revenue breakdown on all of those things. And if I were to, for example, select a field here, and I go into the properties of it, you can change the type to barley, and then take a look again. Look at that. the graph is responding, and all the graphs are responding to what's happening. Now, another thing that we could do for biodiversity in our farm is to create a water feature. So we can look at our ineligible land layer, and we can take a look at the water. And let's imagine we're drawing a little pond. Look at this. We've got our lost income already being calculated for us. So our lost income is £16.50 from creating that little pond. But for biodiversity, I think that's a worthy cause, I think. So yeah, this is it. So we've taken a little walk through Map Viewer, which is readily available to everyone to use. It is there for you, and it already has quite a lot of functionality that you might need. If you need to do a little bit more in 3D and do some triggers and elevation profiles, yeah, you've got Experience Builder for that, which also has a lot more widgets there for you. And then if you wanted to go further, you've got Suite. And you've seen the power of Suite. You've seen that it's a really good tool. And to be honest, this is something that I would encourage you to think about, is how much of the editing that you would need to do really now on your desktop software, because that's licensing, that's training somebody to use it. And now we've made it a lot more accessible. So yeah, thank you very much. And any questions?